Leon Edwards, referring to George Masvidal, said, "Honestly, I'm not surprised. I knew this fraud never wanted to fight me in the first place. Get him the hell out of the way. Let me go fight for my championship." End quote. And I was close enough on that. So what? What if Leon's right? If Leon's right, you're saying that George Masvidal is a chicken. You're saying George Masvidal is a coward. I will tell you, that just doesn't sound right to me. Does that sound right to you guys in your heart? Of anybody that you were going to call a coward or a chicken, can you say that about the BMF? I mean, in all fairness, right? Can you? No, they don't really go together. Let's say he is right. Good. Good. I've never agreed with that fight in the first place. You want the real truth? I don't know why George ever said he was going to fight Leon. I don't know why George is doing this whole, as long as it makes sense and I can get back into a championship fight. I don't think that George knows where in the hell he's at, which is on an island by himself. There are 3 athletes within this sport. Period. They happen to all be today, but there's been 3 athletes through the history of this sport that can do anything. Any match they do will move the needle. Any match they do will sell out any arena they fight in. Conor McGregor, George Masvidal, and Diaz. I'm coupling them together. Diaz, right? Why is George going and doing contenders fights? Why is George putting his name and his reputation why is he putting it on the line? He's not likely to beat those guys. First off, he's already experienced gold. He's still got it, the BMF title. He's fought for world championships multiple times. Whatever contenders fight he goes into, it's down. And we know that about careers, right? We know that about everything in life. What goes up must come down. But why is he putting himself on the line when he could go do something else? I mean, a fighter is supposed to, never wants to admit this, but in closed doors should always be trying to take the biggest paycheck against the easiest opponent. Masvidal never does that, and most guys can't get that deal. Most guys have no control over who they're going to fight. Most guys have absolutely no stardom unless it's a title match or a contendership. Masvidal's in a different category, and I don't know if he knows it. I like Masvidal's attitude. I like that he's willing to fight. There will be a day we're never going to get George Masvidal again. In all fairness, guys, that's going to be a sad day. This sport is more fun with George Masvidal in it. That's the truth. But the same goes for Diaz's, and the same goes for Conor McGregor. And none of them are legitimate title contenders. But they don't need to be. They have another deal. It's a good deal if you can get it, and only 3 guys in the history of time have ever been able to get it. But Masvidal's one of them. Why Masvidal and Nate Diaz aren't talking about part 3 is beyond me. Why Masvidal versus Nick Diaz in part 1 aren't at least talking about it is beyond me. Why Masvidal thought I'm going to go in there and fight Leon Edwards, who hasn't lost in 9 fights, spanned over 5.5 years, and is the clear #1 contender. For what? For what? And I never had to answer that when I was fighting. I'll give you the answer. I give a goddamn about any of it. I'm a competitor. I want to compete. I do not care what it means. I don't care what ranking. I don't care what the money is. I don't care the placement on the card. But I was different. I was unique. In all fairness, right? You never met anybody like me. You never even heard of anybody like me. Any weight class, anytime. It's a cool thing to say, but there's better ways to do your career than the way I did it. In all fairness, I'm like anybody else. I look back and see things that I would have done differently. That would have been it. I'd have never been a coward. I'd never been one of these fake tough guys, but there was times where I could have been a hell of a lot more tactical. I mean, I'll go get a grappling match on the weekend against Andre Galvo just because it's somebody to compete with, and that's what you do on Saturdays if your last name's Sonnen. I had no choice. All the boys in my family went into combat, and we do it every Saturday. Regardless of the result, we're going to walk out there and compete. Now, that was different, right? I had that burning desire. I don't know that Masvidal has it. If he does, I stand corrected. If he wants to fight Leon, just to fight Leon, I stand down. But if he's fighting Leon because he knows that Leon's a top contender and he makes believe in his own head, if I get the jump on Leon, I'm going back in with Usman for a 3rd time, which simply is not going to happen. That is simply not going to happen. And if they fought 3 times or they fought 30 more times, the result of that match isn't going to change. And that has been made crystal clear to us on 2 different occasions. There's no disrespect in that. That's what the sport's about. You bring what you got against what they got. But You acknowledge the evening when it's done. We didn't acknowledge it the first time. We're not going to accept it the second time, and there is going to be no third time. What in the hell does beating up Leon do for anybody? That match was one-sided. It was going to help Leon. Leon is fantastic. I struggle to find the words to compliment Leon high enough. If Leon walked in the studio right now and slapped me in the face and walked out, I wouldn't be able to tell you who did it. So I don't know, man. He looked about 170 pounds. I think he was British and he was pretty quick. I don't know I don't know. Do you? And I'm not looking to be a dick. I could tell you all about the guy. I could tell you his record. I could tell you where he's from, who he trains with, how old he is. I could tell you how many stones he is. I could tell you how many kilos I know all about him. I couldn't pick him out of a crowd, and neither could you. Now, that's okay. The same was said about Jorge Masvidal until he grew the hair, put on the robe, and became a main eventer at Madison Square Garden. He was just one of the guys. He was an interchangeable mediocrity within that weight class that had a tattoo on his neck. That's it. Leon's got that same problem, which is being recognizable, being identifiable, having people know what you are, right? And Leon was gone for a period of time. If anybody got a bad deal during COVID, it was Leon. Leon had a massive fight lined up with Chimaev that was supposed to draw him right into a world championship. In a normal scenario, we wouldn't be talking about Leon being a number one contender. We'd either be referring to Leon as the guy who lost for the belt or as the guy who has the belt. But he would have had that opportunity by now. So you bring him in there with a Nate Diaz. You make sure the world's watching. Boom, you sure help to solve that problem to some degree. Now you do it one more time. You bring him up with the sport's second biggest star. He's already fought number 3. Now you put him with number 2. All of a sudden, people do know what a Leon is. All of a sudden, he is more identifiable. All of a sudden, we do learn something more about him. Okay, great. I see what George was bringing to the table that Leon was looking to take. What is it that Leon had that George was going to take? Because don't forget, guys, you could be under the unified rules. You could be in the Queensberry rules. You could do whatever the hell you want. You're still partners. Like it or not, no matter how much you detest this person, and no matter what dark ideas you have about what you're going to do to him, you're still partners. He's got to bring something to the match, and all the chips go in. Whatever titles you have versus whatever I have, and it doesn't matter if you have more, I'm here to take them all. But the opponent has the same opportunity, so I understand what Leon was reaching his hand in the pot for. I don't know what George was. And there is a part of me that thinks that George is confused with who and where he is. If Jorge Masvidal does not know that he is the second biggest draw on earth right now, only to Conor McGregor, who in all fairness is the number one draw in the history of combat sports. Jorge Masvidal is on an island of his own. If he wants to fight Colby and go with that story, that's going to be massive. But if he doesn't, for whatever reason, he doesn't know us a damn thing. He didn't get to that island. He didn't get to be the second biggest draw the easy way. He got there the hard way with no one helping him. Starting when he was 17 years old, lying about his age like Roberto Duran and going to the backyard with people after lunch at Burger King that he barely had money to buy him. And in all fairness, George got himself in this position by himself. What he does with it, totally up to George. I'm not convinced that he is aware of the spot that he's in. I don't know what the fight with Leon represented. There's not a part of me that's disappointed that fight's not going to happen. I was looking forward to it. 3-piece in a soda, we got to go answer for that. Get these guys in here. Don't main event them because we only want to see that for 3 rounds. We don't want to see 25 minutes of that. We want to see 3 rounds, hard, full pace. That's what we want to see. Everything's right. Set the world straight. Give Leon his shot. See what Masvidal can do. He got stuck in a little bit of crack because of this Usman business. See if he can spring back out of it. That's what a fighter is. See if he can push for it. Okay, I'm in for that. But when it got canceled, I'm fine with that too because I don't know what they were fighting for. Is it just redemption of 3-piece in a soda? Is just so people know what a Leon is when we throw him in there opposite of Usman? What was in it for Masvidal? And Masvidal's going to have to ask himself this same question when he comes back, which is going to be right into the headlights of Colby Covington. Colby's going to do nothing until Masvidal gets a contract. It's not that Colby's going to accept one. Colby will do nothing until Masvidal has one and he realizes he can't get it. It wouldn't be like Masvidal sidestep it, but let's say he does. He's earned the right. He's earned a very rare position. He's sitting on a very hot hand. And in many ways, it makes much more sense, right? You like to use the word sense. This is how wimps talk. But to throw out that wimpy term makes a hell of a lot more sense for George Masvidal to fight Diaz. Either one. Nick or Nate. If it's got to make dollars to make sense, that makes more of it than fighting Leon Edwards.